Because the rotary swing's objective is to define a common set of fundamentals for the golf swing, just like you have in all other sports, we first must understand what a fundamental is and define, and from there work forward to define what a common set of fundamentals are. Anything else that you've learned in life has been based on a set of fundamentals that's agreed on by people within the industry who teach whatever it is that you're learning. Whether it's learning how to play tennis, there are accepted grips, are fundamentals of the grip in tennis. There are fundamentals of how you serve. There are fundamentals how you hit a forehand, a backhand, so on and so forth. But golf has somehow managed to escape the ideas that there's a fundamental way of doing things, and for a large part, that's crazy, because how else are you going to get people to improve and learn how to play golf better unless you have a common set of fundamentals that's agreed on, that makes sense, that's based on absolutes. So that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. The first thing we have to do is define a set of fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of the golf swing? And when we do these in clinics, we always ask the participants to throw out what they are. And so common ones are, the grip. You got to grip the golf club. The grip is a fundamental, or stance width, or swing plane, or balance, or weight distribution. And each one of those things, if you look at it, the grip, if that's a fundamental of the golf swing, there are many different ways to hold the club that are accepted ways to hold it. There's an interlock, there's a 10 finger, so on and so forth. Stance width, all these things are, to a lot of golfers, are considered fundamentals, but yet when we ask them to define what the fundamental is, there's 5 different definitions for how wide your stance should be. So if we look at a fundamental, and we're going back from the beginning, we're starting looking at the golf swing from the ground up, we need to go to the beginning with what a fundamental is. And so we're going to go to the authority on the definition of a fundamental, and that is Webster's Dictionary. And we're going to look at how Webster's defines what a fundamental is. According to Webster's, a fundamental is an original source, it's central, it's a basis determining essential structure or function, it's primary of or relating to the foundation or base, it is serving as an essential component, a cardinal rule. Now, if we look at, that's kind of a lot of mumbo jumbo. If we look at the next piece, we can look at what the synonyms of fundamental are. These are a little bit easier for people to draw conclusions to what a fundamental is. Primary, origin, central, and absolute. Now, before we go back and talk about the grip and stance width and swing plane and balance and all those things, we're going to look at what the antonyms of a fundamental are before we do that. An antonym, the opposite of a fundamental, is secondary, consequential, peripheral, and dependent. So let's go back and look at the synonyms of a fundamental, and let's just talk about swing plane. Swing plane is a very, very well-discussed topic in the golf instruction world. Many golfers consider it, or golf instructors consider it, to be the only thing that matters. And the question is, does it meet the qualification of being a fundamental by definition? Well, by definition, it is immediately discarded because it is not absolute, nor is it primary. Because if we look at the slide under antonyms, it is dependent. Swing plane is completely dependent on how you move your body. If you swing your arms around your body and you stand really upright, you're going to swing really flat. Your swing plane will be really flat. If you swing your arms very up and down in front of your body, your swing plane will be more upright. If you rotate your forearms, that will also dictate the swing plane. So, by its definition, swing plane is completely dependent. It's peripheral to what's going on around. It is what's going on around the body. The way that the body moves is dictating that swing plane. So by definition, swing plane cannot be a fundamental of the golf swing. Now, don't take that to say that swing plane is not important. It is, but it is a byproduct of the movements of the muscles and bones of the body that create a swing plane. So therefore, by definition, it can't be a fundamental. So what can be a fundamental? What is absolute in the golf swing? Well, rotation. Rotation is something that everybody does in the golf swing to some degree or another. So, and its origin is really the key fundamental. Where are you rotating from? How are you rotating? That is the key to understanding how to really build a proper golf swing, how to build a good swing plane. If you're rotating correctly from the right place, the right source, moving correctly based on the fundamentals, your swing plane will take care of itself. If you're not, your swing plane is going to be off. It's going to be flat, too upright, what have you. So what about the grip? Well, there's lots of different ways to hold the grip, but there are fundamentals of the grip. There's not necessarily an interlock versus an overlap. There's not necessarily one that's better than the other, at least not according to research that we have at this point. Maybe in the future that would change, but at this point there's no fundamental that says you should grip the club this way or you should grip the club that way. So what about stance width? Stance width is really a hot debated topic. We talk about stance width quite a bit, and as we get into the further slides, we'll talk about stance width a lot more. But stance widths, you see golfers who stand really wide, you see golfers who stand really narrow. When we get into the setup portion and we talk about the fundamentals of the setup, we'll talk about why the stance width is what it is for the rotary swing. But the first thing we want you to do is start to think about things based on the definition of a fundamental. Everything that you see or learn in the golf swing that's called a fundamental, you need to question it and say, is that a cardinal rule? Is it an original source? Is it the foundation for my golf swing? And when you start thinking about the positions of the club, those are all peripheral things. The club is solely dependent on how the body moves. So that's not the first place to look for fundamentals of the golf swing. There are fundamental parts that are important for how the golf club moves and how it comes into impact in those things, but they are completely 110% dependent on what your body does, what your muscles do. That is where you need to start looking at fundamentals in the golf swing.